Looking back to the year 2019, you may think about many people who were in the media spotlight throughout the year. They can be politicians involved in scandals or sports stars who are in the headlines with stellar performances. Whoever you choose to be the person of the year, there's one you shouldn't forget. A 51-year-old singer, Yang Joon-il. Yang made his debut almost 30 years ago and had practically been retired for longer than a decade, but public demand brought him back to the entertainment scene. Only by one appearance on a TV show last December, he became a household name. The Korean-American singer got into the music industry in 1991 with a brand new style of music and dance that Koreans have never seen before. However, he barely made a splash and disappeared into the memories of ardent fans. But last year on YouTube, his decades-old videos went viral and received rave reviews. It was almost 30 years ago, but his fashion, music, and dance moves didn't look out of style for 2019's music fans. Infatuated by him, many of his fans called him a genius way ahead of his time. Finally, he was invited on a TV show featuring the then and now of musicians, and he now enjoys popularity that is long overdue. Yang's unchanged style and hipness are important factors that made him popular, but the way he talked and interacted with the fans looked different than that of a Korea's average 50-year-old man. For those over 40, he brings back memories of their younger years. And for younger generations, his modest and down-to-earth attitude is especially appealing and attractive. Most of all, looking at his talent and passion on stage, many Koreans believe that the credit is being given where credit is due. Even though it was 3 decades ago, Yang's look and performances are on par with today's pop music standards. So we said even though it was 3 decades ago, a decade is 10 years. So it was 30 years ago, so 3 times 10 is 30. So we use decade is 10 years, so 3 decades ago would be 30 years. And I also said the performances would be on par with today's pop music standards. On par means equal to. So the music standards of today's music fans, it's very like the dance moves, the way of singing, and his style is very similar to what we're seeing now. So if you compared it side by side, it would be on par, kind of equal with his style, way of dancing, and his music. Yang's style from the 1990s has stood the test of time and is still relevant today. So it stood the test of time, or it stands the test of time, means something lasts for a very long time. So if you think about the Roman aqueducts that bring water from mountains to cities, they're still up in Europe. And it's been 2,000 years. They have stood the test of time. So throughout weather and very harsh conditions, these stone structures are still there. So if something is very good years ago, but is still very good now, it has stood the test of time. Fans say in the past he was innovative in his style and dance, and that is why he has achieved a level of success he couldn't in the past. Yang's surge in popularity is due to the fact his work was ahead of his time. Fans see that he was underrated 30 years ago. All right, so in this sentence I said Yang's surge in popularity is due to the fact. So his surge, a surge is like a sudden increase, but with a lot. So if a stock surges, it goes up very quickly. Or if there's a big heavy rainfall, the water surges down the street. So his popularity has surged means he had very little popularity and now he's become very popular. So there's a surge in popularity. And you've heard this a couple times in this podcast that his work was ahead of his time or ahead of the times. So we use that when something comes out and it's very good, but people don't understand it. People don't recognize it. But then years later, people say, oh, that was very good. So for example, like a lot of times in disco music, a lot of the sounds in disco music were ahead of their time because in the 1970s, they were experimenting with synthesizers and electronic music making machines. But then disco kind of faded out of popularity. And then 20 years later, you see the emergence of dance music, techno, EDM, and we hear the same sounds that we did in the 70s. So a lot of disco music was ahead of its time. It wasn't as popular then, but the electronic music is very popular now. So his music was not popular, but very good, but today is accepted. So it's ahead of its time. And then we say fans see that he was underrated 30 years ago. So if something or someone is underrated, it means that they're very talented or very good quality, but people don't recognize it. So a lot of times if you see a soccer match, a football match, and you see one guy on the team who's doing very well, but is not getting recognition, that means he is underrated. Yang does not fit the stereotype of a 50-year-old Korean man. He is full of energy and is humble on stage. So I said Yang does not fit the stereotype. A stereotype is an expression we use when we see a person, place, or thing, and we have kind of a thought in our mind about that place, or we think a general thought about a group of people. So for example, in this case, when you close your eyes and picture a 50-year-old Korean man, you think kind of older ajashi, right? You don't think someone who's kind of humble, graceful, very thin, with a lot of charisma. So he does not fit the stereotype of your average Korean person. It seems Yang is a bit of a contradiction. He's a 50-year-old Korean man, but he has the same humility and grace as he did when he was in his 20s. So when you see someone or someplace that is a contradiction, that means, we think, he's a 51-year-old man. He's going to be kind of set in his ways, tired, grumpy, maybe a little fat. But in this case, you have a guy who's very skinny. He's very energetic. He's very youthful, and but he's still kind of humble at the same time. So it's a contradiction. It means that he's kind of like an opposite of what you might think. His fans believe it is never too late for Yang. He finally got the recognition he deserves after 30 years. So I said, it's never too late for Yang. So it's never too late is an expression we use that means, if you want to start something or do something, we say, it's never too late in your life to do something. So for example, like, let's say you're 50 years old and you've never been married. Someone might say to you, hey, it's never too late, meaning that you could find someone around the same age, fall in love and get married. Or, it's never too late to learn a language. It might get harder, but you can still do it. So in this case, his fans believe, it was never too late for him, meaning that it's been years, but now he's kind of gained this popularity. And then secondly, I said he finally got the recognition he deserves. So recognition that is deserved means like after a long time, if someone or something is not recognized, but then later is, it's kind of deserved for that person or place. This is a huge comeback for Yang. He can now bask in the glory of being famous again after 30 years. So first I said, this is a huge comeback for Yang. A comeback is when, you did well in the past, but then you did not do well for a period of time. We use this a lot for musicians, athletes, and kind of famous people. So if they had a great acting career, but then things kind of died down, they became less famous, but then became a lot more famous later, that's a comeback. Or like a boxer, he was, he was fighting very well early in his career, lost several fights, but then came back years later. That's called a comeback. And then finally, I said he can now bask in the glory of being famous again. So to bask in the glory, to bask is kind of like to sit there and absorb. So you can bask in the sun, but to bask in the glory means, you've worked very hard, you've tried a lot, and then you finally get your reward and everyone's appreciating you. You are in that feeling, you are basking in the glory of the situation or the time. Thanks, guys, and thanks for downloading. I hope you have a happy new year. Remember to follow me at MATTSSAM on Instagram, and also at PangeaKorea.com is my website. And I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Bye-bye.